What's up, everybody? Hey, I see all these videos, right? We're gonna talk sports here. I see like, subscribe, all that stupid stuff, right? I see all these videos where people are talking about how sports is rigged and sports is fake and it's all scripted and all this other baloney, and it's 100% not true. And I'm gonna tell you why. And a lot of people that don't follow sports, they don't necessarily understand this. I'm not saying that you're dumb or anything like that, but when you say make those statements, it's because a lot of sports. Okay, the first let's do the foundation of it. Number one, sports is an emotional endeavor. You're connected to your team. You vote locally. You raw for your team locally, or you have a team that you're emotionally connected to. So that's kind of what happens with it, right? So you think your team is better than it actually is. So you think the outcome is going to be different than it actually is. A lot of the Dallas Cowboys fans, they're lunatics and they love their team, but maybe they don't see the reality of the situation, right? They don't see the reality of the situation. So there's that aspect of it, right? It's the first act. So let's lay the foundation for why I'm going to explain to you why sports is not rigged. So there's that aspect of it, right? And so the next aspect of it is the human factor. So in football, you have 11 people playing against 11 separate people, where there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 refs in a game. So you have 20 something players, and I'm not calling the refs players, but they're in the mix to the whole deal, right? They're there, right? And so you have all these moving parts, and then you have all the coaches, all the assistant coaches. You have people that are healthy, that are not healthy. And then you have substitutions. So you have like 100 players that play or don't play. So matched up against another set of 100 players. So in that, and then you have a coaching staff of 10 or 15 going against another coaching staff that's of 10 or 15, and they all kind of know each other because it's a round robin of the coaching staffs. And so you have all that. You have all these giant moving parts, and you don't know what to expect. So when you have a good player, you have this, you have that, and then you have these games with the weird outcomes. I just explained the complexity of a game, and you expect it to come out how you think it's going to come out. There's so many mismatches, micro-mismatches. There's obvious mismatches, right? Oh, this defense is ranked super high, and I'm going to explain that too. They're ranked super high, and this offense is super not good, right? I don't know if that makes sense. Super not good. So you have a good defense versus a bad offense, and yeah, that makes sense, right? That's the obvious mismatch you have here, right? What you don't see is the micro mismatches. So say, for example, a good player, like say Chris Jones from the Chiefs, really good, amazing player, got paid all this money, blah, 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 blah. When he goes for a breather, the coaching staff of another team, they pay attention to that. So his replacement, because they pay him so much money, he's at this status over here. And the next person that replaces him, because they couldn't pay this guy a lot of money, the quality drops off so drastically. So what you see is there are coaches that recognize these micro mismatches when players are going out for a breather. The most obvious one is when they get hurt. So you have that discombobulation of what is reality. Oh, this team is really good, but because this team does more plays, then the good defensive linemen have to take breathers, and the second person that comes in to give them a breather, they're not as good, and they're really not as good, because if you pay a Chris Jones, if you pay him $30 million a year, the next guy's not going to make 15, not going to make 20. He's going to make like 5 or the minimum 4, which is still a lot of money. But it changes the dynamics of what a team can do. So certain coaches or coaching staffs, they understand this. And some coaches understand it better than the others. And that's why you see the disparity in why a certain team loses versus why a certain team wins. And then ego gets involved, right? So we just talked about the micro mismatches, right? Even coaching styles. Some coaching styles do good against certain teams and they do bad against other teams. So there's all that discrepancy that we're talking about here. The 100 and so many people involved, everybody's going to have problems, right? Say, for example, and boxers, this happens in boxing. The classic case was Buster Douglas against Mike Tyson, when Mike Tyson was beating everybody. And Buster Douglas's mother passed away, and he fought lights out, and he beat Mike Tyson. Nobody expected him to do that. He was a huge underdog. But this is the example that I'm talking about. There's players that have marital issues. They have their kids get sick. Their parents, they get sick. They have nagging injuries that they don't share with the NFL because they want to keep playing, and that's been documented, right? So we have all these variables. It's such a complicated mix that nobody can predict that. That's what happened with the Dallas Cowboys when they lost. You say, how could that have happened? Well, because all these micro mismatchups, all these micro matchups were favoring the Green Bay Packers. And that discrepancy gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So when you say it's scripted, you don't know about sports in general. You don't know about how that works, the convoluted nature of that, right? The way you don't see that, so I talked about boxing because it's really, boxing even has the micro mismatches too, because in boxing, even though it's 1 versus 1, all the coaching staff, what happens if a coach gets fired or a coach doesn't want to train you because you don't want to pay him? All that's behind the scenes stuff. All those are micro differences in what's going on. So that performance that they did before is not the same performance now. That person maybe makes more money, so they don't practice as hard, or they don't train as hard, or they're dealing with marital issues, or they had a kid and the wife is separated, whatever the deal is. Those differences, it's what makes sports look scripted. And it's completely not. Now, is there cheating? I can't talk to that because you can't prove that in any quantitative way because it's very difficult to do because people know how to cover the tracks very well. And then the last factor of the whole thing is people make mistakes. Refs are human beings. They mess up, right? Refs, they're all investigated. I'm not saying that sports is perfect. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the mismatches that occur on the micro level, we just talked about the little mismatches where you have the star. Another exaggerated version of this is when the star quarterback gets hurt. The guy, like say Patrick Mahomes, he gets hurt and he's getting paid $50 million a year. If his next person comes in, he's not making that much, so he's not going to be as good. They'll still win games because the coaches have to coach and they have to strategize and they think about all this kind of stuff. But all those discrepancies, all those little interactions, those are variables that the equation is so giant that sometimes you have a perverted outcome. And what I mean by perverted outcome is you have this thing that is completely unexpected, right? And then another thing too is here. Team rankings of what the record is very misleading because it's very difficult to take into consideration the quality of opponent. Right? Some coaches are new. They don't understand how to take advantage of those micro discrepancies, about those micro mismatches. Some do, but they don't know how to do it effectively. They don't know how to strategize for that. They don't know how to account for that. So a team that loses and then wins and then loses, you don't know what's happening in there, right? Coaches could have figured something out. Oh, damn, I had an epiphany. I know how to do this now. Players could as well. It's like that defensive back from the Cowboys who had, was it 5 or 6 returns for pick sixes for touchdowns. They weren't going to throw his way anymore. And so the strategy all got adjusted around, right? So did that help them or hurt them? Maybe it hurted Dallas. Maybe it hurt Dallas because it exposed the other side for some other reason. So you have to look at all that, right? You have to look at, there's just so many mismatches, and I can go into all of them, but the variability of that is what gives the appearance that football is fixed. And I think that, or any sport is scripted because you're not understanding that dynamic of what we're seeing there. The idea of a scripted sport, it's kind of ridiculous because the whole point of the sports is to be competitive, and you have all these guys making millions of dollars and there's a huge carrot in front of them to make all that money. But if you don't understand the dynamics of the mismatches, it will seem that way to you. But the NFL is not scripted. The sports are not scripted. They think who's going to win. They know who's going to win, but it doesn't always hold true. So what are your thoughts on this? Like, subscribe, follow. Let's get that every platform: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok, because it's under 10 minutes. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on my idea that sports is not scripted? I want to hear from you. Put it in the comments. Let's have a conversation about it.